So, Peter, you were instrumental in spearheading a letter to the president on behalf of Marcia Lazareva. Can you tell our audience about the letter and how instrumental that letter is, or letters like that can be, to advocate for victims of religious persecution, human rights violations? There were 15 signatures from organizations from all over the country, representing people really from all over the world. So I was hoping you could speak to that.
Absolutely, yeah. That letter is a model that, and you see this a lot in the religious freedom advocacy community. And the reason people go towards, or that the community has looked towards specific appeals to the administration, sort of garnering the support of different organizations. Usually what we always look for is we try and have a broad coalition of organizations that represent from the left to the right, showing that this is an issue that is not partisan, this is an issue that is a clear human rights case, and is sort of, it's a slam dunk issue, if you will. I think the idea is that what we've seen is the president has actually been pretty active in bringing home people imprisoned abroad, Americans imprisoned abroad, and sort of worried about justice cases of unjust imprisonment around the world has been something that he has highlighted and has taken a lot of pride in. And so we saw there being value in a direct appeal, and we've seen value from direct appeals to the administration on that sort of issue. So laying out the concerns, the case, and making that appeal. So that is what we did, yeah, with this letter for the case for Marcia.
And so with that letter and other methods like that, like for example GMA letters, I was hoping you could tell the audience what is a GMA letter, how have they been successful? In Marcia Lazareva's case, members of Congress on both sides of the aisle signed on, and how effective are they?
That's a great question. So Martha's referring to the Global Magnitsky Act sanctions, and that's a sanction regimen that an administration through the State Department and partnering with Treasury can place on an individual and this is a unique sanction because it deals with cases of corruption and human rights abuses, which is unique. And so it actually allows groups like IDC and other nonprofit advocacy groups in the space to come and make appeals through a letter, basically laying out the case of what the human rights violation or the corruption, and make an appeal to the State Department and to the Treasury on behalf of an individual to be sanctioned, basically, to try and apply economic pressure to someone who is involved in a case of injustice or persecution or human rights violation. And so, yeah, we've seen that used to actually great success. I think we maybe underestimate the impact on some of these individuals who have foreign bank accounts, who like to travel, who, if the U.S. can just cramp some of these experiences for them and some of their access to their finances, it actually can have a big impact on how much they're invested in persecuting or imprisoning that individual or being involved. Now, they don't fix every problem. I think there's also an idea that you can maybe sort of sanction certain problems away. That's not true. Not every problem can be fixed with sanctions. There are some problems, though, where there are situations where sanctions are very, very effective. As we saw with Pastor Brunson, that was a great example of a situation like that. And I know right now Senator Shaheen is putting together sanctions in regard to a case of an American citizen who fled Lebanon during the Civil War, became an American citizen, was told by the Lebanese government he could go back and visit, went back, was imprisoned. Now there's a case sort of brewing around that, and Senator Shaheen, he's from her state, and she said, okay, we're going to look at sanctions unless he's released. So it is a mechanism that is turned to with great effect.
And Philippe, Amnesty International is the largest, most prominent defender of human rights around the world. What are the most effective tools, like the GMA letter that has been implemented and used in the Marcia Lazareva case? What kind of tools like that are the most effective?
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do when I go into a congressional office is I take a lot of the reporting. We have excellent reporting. We have offices in the Middle East and North Africa. Well, there's 3 main offices. One is in Jerusalem, and one's in Beirut, and then one is in Tunis. We were kicked out of every other location, which we wear a badge of honor, although I wish it was under different circumstances. But nevertheless, that's the reality that we operate in. However, we have teams of researchers that go and collect information from across the region, and they put it in these fantastic reports that then I take to members of Congress, and I give to them. These reports can be focused on specific individual cases, but oftentimes, and most of the times, they're more broad-based. So, for example, we have one on Saudi Arabia. We just released a report today on Saudi Arabia's anti-terrorism court, which the Crown Prince, I should send it to you.
I want to see that.
Well, it's supposed to. Which the Crown Prince has used to essentially throw anybody in prison under anti-terrorism charges that are often domestic political activists, or again, similar to some of the cases I spoke of before, just people who disagreed with the Crown Prince, maybe publicly online or out in the open. So it's reports like that that we'll take to members of Congress to educate them on what's happening. We show them how we got these findings, and our reporting is so good that we get requests all the time from the White House, from the State Department, from USERF, from Congress, and I send it to them. And if I have to go in and brief the commissioners or the members, I will go in and I will brief them on the findings, how we got the information, and then walk them through potential solutions or recommendations that we have. And these recommendations are often focused on, we don't take positions on sanctions actually, so it's not something that we necessarily do, although those are tools that others advocate for, which is fine. But we say, you have leverage as a member of Congress to pick up the phone and call the Saudi ambassador to Washington, D.C. and say, why are there American citizens in your prisons? Why are people being arrested for wanting to exercise their faith freely in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Why are people being executed by the dozens in your country? Why are they being tortured? I mean, you can go down the list of the violations. We have the reporting, and we often push these members of Congress to elevate these issues with the ambassadors or take it to the White House and ask them to get involved.
So Peter, back to you. When you first heard about the Marshall Lazariva case, was there any doubt in your mind that it was a religious freedom case?
So I think the case fits the model of a lot of the cases that we see in the region, where there is, like Rami's case, for example, where you have the charges being terrorism, and then there's a subtext. Marsha's case, obviously, there was this political sort of subtext of this tension between her work and other companies that had political influence and connections that she didn't have, and that was used corruptly to use the legal system against her. And what we saw, though, was right away from the reporting that we were hearing from her time in prison was that she was clearly harassed and targeted specifically because she was Orthodox Christian. She was, at different times she was pressured to convert. At different times they held her hearings on Sundays and on Easter to inconvenience her. They did not allow her to have scriptures with her. They did not allow her to have any religious symbols with her. They forced her to wear coverings to cover her hair to align with sort of Islamic ideology. So I think there was just a number of things that were clearly signs that there was specific treatment, mistreatment because she was